music down. It's probably up pretty loud from last time.
What was on?
There we go. Go Legend by Big Sean. There it is.
So, Walshy, truth be told, we were planning on doing this chat on this morning because it was meant to be your first day back, but
That's right, yeah.
just about everybody was back last week. Talk us through that and the decision there.
Yeah, I think it definitely got to a point in our break. A lot of us had been training together for a fair while, so I think a lot of the guys were just super keen. You see a lot of clubs are already back into training, and you definitely get that sort of itch. And I think by now we've got 3 weeks to really lock in, and because we've had this coaching group for now, this is probably our 3rd year going into a system that we're getting familiar with. I think you can hit the ground running, which is probably a big benefit we haven't had in the past. So yeah, it was an enjoyable first week, even though the weather was a bit up and down, but 30 for us today, which would be nice.
Was it weird to see other clubs being back for pre-season training and you still being on your scheduled break?
Yeah, it definitely was. That's the probably first we've experienced of it. But I also think we were obviously playing footy deep into the season when they were probably on break as well, so that can make you rest a little bit easier. But as I said, by the time you've each lad's gone on their holiday, I had their break, you start to get the itch for a routine pretty quick. You nearly become a creature of habit because we've got our whole weeks mapped out for us, and then you get to your break and you just sort of got to organise it yourself. So yeah, we're pretty lucky to have a period of 10 weeks off, and in that time you're doing your training, but nothing can beat doing it with 40 guys and getting the competitive juices flowing again.
Well, you had your housemates were back at training as well. While they may have left Carlton, you've still held on to them. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. So my house is always a talk of big discussion around the club, just because I've always got a few boys with me. Obviously had Charlie and Matty Kennedy last year, along with Paddy Dow, and then Dowie and one of our old teammates, Will Setterfield's moved in, who was living around the corner. So 3 different clubs at the helm now, but so I've just been saying to a few people I'm looking forward to trying to run through them when we play them. But it's good to still live with guys that live that professional lifestyle of playing AFL football, but then also now sort of getting to the point where you want a bit of your own time as well. So it's a good little balance, but we'll see how it goes this year anyway.
Back on, I guess, training and pre-season, all that kind of thing. Probably a different pressure surrounding the team this year compared to previous. There's always been pressure involved with Carlton, but coming off the back of a prelim, I feel like everybody expects that, if not more, for next season. So how do you and the team cope with that?
Yeah, I think probably even going into last year, the expectation side of things was always thrown out there a fair bit. But for us as a group, I think we probably learnt the hard way last year of not focusing too much on the outcome, looking at more of how we play our best footy. And I think we started to create a bit of an identity from the midpoint of the year, and now when we go into training, that's just the expectation. So I think you get the natural development of guys getting more mature, knowing their role, and sort of continuing to work on their game, combined with us doing that as a whole team, buying into what we want to work on. I think you only get improvement from there. So at this point of year, I think it's definitely more locking into getting your body right and putting yourself in a position to have a strong pre-season, and then from there get into real sort of the nitty and gritty stuff of working on a few things we want to refine that we learned from last year. And yeah, it's a pretty exciting period of the year because each Monday, Wednesday, Friday you can get a lot better.
Did week 1 reflect all that from what you just said from that first week of pre-season?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Particularly around, we've probably got a theming around a few of our training days, which is pretty cool. So on the Wednesday we had a bit of a contest type theme, which, as I said, brought out those competitive juices, but then also I think the craft element, working with each of our lines and just really zoning in on a few areas that we think we can get improvement. So little moments like that, I think, definitely in pre-season you've got more time to work on that and go harder. So I think from here it's probably just keep on reinforcing the main things we want to do and then chip away at the things we want to work on.
I want to ask you about, I guess, your leadership. You were in the leadership group in your second year, and I think co-vice captain in your third or fourth. You've had a bit of a tricky time since becoming co-vice captain in terms of injuries in the off-season, that kind of thing, but your stance on leadership and how that's progressing for you, how you're feeling you are in that space heading into another season.
Yeah, the leadership side of stuff, I've always been put in a pretty fortunate position to learn off a lot of guys, and obviously Cripper and Weeders are the main two within that group, but as I mentioned before, with us becoming probably a bit more mature as a group and having experienced guys, there's a lot of people to learn off. And then for me, in my leadership space now, I feel like I'm still probably one of the younger ones in the leadership group, so being able to connect with the younger guys. And I just remember when I was coming into club, my first, and still now, but particularly the first to 3 years, you're taking in everything you can, and I had guys setting really good examples for me. So one of my main leadership goals now is to do that for the young guys. And then particularly you mentioned with my injuries, I had to probably, I've always sort of lent on my main leadership trait being setting the example out of training and really creating energy that way. And that's where I was really challenging in the past, particularly last year where I didn't do any of the pre-season because you're not out there in amongst it. So I think that taught me a few more things of how to sort of get around the boys in different ways when I'm not out on the track, following up with guys and also keeping my finger on the pulse in other ways, whether it be in the gym or getting around the guys in rehab. So I think overall it gave me a well-balanced sort of mindset, but was definitely challenging for certain parts of that.
Someone like Ollie Hollands has already mentioned that he's keen to kind of grab onto you and learn from you in training. You did a bit of that contest work with him on Wednesday. What's it like having him as your shadow in training?
Yeah, I think I might have to pay him for the nice comments he said about me in your podcast, Critter. But Ollie's a ripper. I think everyone's seen last year how tough he can be and his running ability, and he's got a real passion for the game, which in my time I think that's one of the biggest things that goes untalked about. If you love what you do and work hard on it, you've only got good things coming your way, I reckon. So, I've been really pumped to be able to get into pre-season and do work with a guy like Ollie, because as I said, I didn't get to do it last year, and he's always hungry for the contest and works hard, so he's a great matchup for me because he can spread on the outside, and I think I probably had a similar frame to him coming in, and I probably can teach him a few tricks that help me along the way. So there's plenty of guys within that as well, like Billy Wilson was doing midfield work with us, Jackson Binns has been going really well, Elijah Hollands going through there. So there's some fresh faces that are putting their hands up, and I think for us as a group, that's only showing the depth. So really excited to keep going to work with those boys.
Have you forgiven Matthew Kennedy yet for leaving you?
Yeah, well, it's been a big off season for Matty, so
understandable.
Yeah, for the viewers who don't know, he got married, so he moved out of the house with Mary Ann, and we've had about 4 or 5 years together, me and Matty. So I think the time was definitely up, but he was going well. I think he had a great holiday in Fiji, and he's come back tan and hit the ground running. So I definitely will miss living with him, just because obviously a great mate, but I think we see each other enough at the club anyway, and he can save his carry-on for then.
One last one. Everyone knows about your white line fever. I'm not sure if we've drummed it up too much, but everyone knows about it.
Yeah.
Do you still get that in training as well?
I think, as I was speaking about my personal development before with leadership, I've mellowed that down a bit, but I think once it comes to the match simulations, the juices might get flowing, but I think that mantle might have been taken by Matty Kennedy and Pitto with the way they were going
Matty
after
Kennedy and Cripper as well.
Yeah, Matty Kennedy and Cripper. I thought Matty Kennedy was going to punch the ball at training the other day, so that's gone to another level. But yeah, I think I'd probably still be in the top 3 or 4 at the club for maybe getting a bit vocalised with my competitiveness. So, yeah, when the time's right, I think it's all well and good.
Ready to crack in?
Yeah, should be good. Let's go.